Morning. A similar discussion that comes up in the malacha of mochik, of erasing, and is also relevant, in fact, to the previous malacha of kosef, writing, is the question of opening and closing books, which have, for instance, a library stamp on the side of the pages, which in total create a word, and when opening and closing them, destroy or bring the word back together. Would that be a problem with either kosef or mochik? The Lavosh, Magen Avram, and Chazon Ish are all strict in this regard, and they say that since opening and closing these pages is considered disconnecting it or reconnecting it, then they would in fact be problematic under the categories of writing or erasing. However, the Ramah, the Taz, and many other Achronim are lenient because they say a couple of reasons. First and foremost, they say this is what's called derech tashmisha. It's the normal way of being used, just like opening and closing a door is not a problem of bona or soser, of building or destroying, so too opening or closing these books are not a problem of kosef or mochik, because it's the normal way of using the book is to open and close them. The Chazon Ish was not a fan of that logic. However, nonetheless, those Achronim do hold that way. Another reason that the Ramah provides for being lenient under these circumstances is because really what you're doing, they aren't actually one word. Each page has its own part of the letter, and all you're doing is bringing the lettering closer or further to one another, but one is not actually writing or erasing the word, and therefore that's another reason to be lenient. The Mishnah Berurah brings all of the above opinions and writes that the custom is, like the Ramah and Taz, to be lenient, and one does not have to be concerned about opening or closing such a book. However, he does say, the Mishnah Berurah, he concludes, that Mikol Makom, still nonetheless, if one has another book to use, then one would preferably go ahead and be strict and do that, but if not, then that one can absolutely rely on the lenient opinion. There are those, to avoid the question, who will put some significant interruption from before Shabbos, a paper or a thick card or something, so that in enough places so that it already isn't a full word from before. But again, according to many, this would not be necessary. There is a similar question that arises in regards to a Parochet, the curtain on the Aron Kodesh, which has a word spelled across, half the letters on one side, half the letters on the other, and when opening and close it, perhaps that brings together a word. Would that be a problem? So similar to what we just mentioned, many of the Achronim would be lenient because it is derech tashmisha, it's the normal way of using it, or that it's not really a form of writing or erasing. However, in this instance, even those that are strict have more reason to be lenient, because the Paroches, whereas a book is tightly pressed together, so it makes more sense. One can argue that, look, that's one word that is put together, and when opening and closing it, one is separating it. When it comes to Paroches, that's even less of a compelling argument, because they aren't even tightly pressed together, but they are simply hanging in the air next to each other. And so to claim that that is one word and by opening and closing it would be a problem of mochik is hard to prove. And therefore, everyone agrees that while maybe one designing the Parocha should avoid getting into such a question, if that is the case, it is absolutely permitted to go ahead and use on Shabbos, not a problem at all. These are not problems of kosef or mochik. So while all of these have areas to be strict on, they all certainly have very solid ground to be lenient on as well.